A woman invited an enemy general into her tent, gave him milk to drink, tucked him in for a nap, and then drove a tent spike through his skull with a hammer. This brutal assassination is not only recorded in the Bible, it is actually celebrated as an act of heroism that saved an entire nation. But the circumstances that led to this shocking act reveal something about ancient warfare and divine justice that will completely change your perspective on biblical women. Stay tuned because the details of this incredible story will show you why sometimes the most unlikely people become instruments of God's deliverance. General Sisera was the most feared military commander of his generation, leading an army of 900 iron chariots that terrorized the Israelites for 20 long years. His reputation for brutality was legendary, and his very name struck terror into the hearts of entire cities. But on this particular day, everything was about to change in the most unexpected way possible. The Israelite army, led by Barak and the prophetess Deborah, had just defeated Sisera's mighty forces in a miraculous victory. The general who had seemed invincible was now fleeing for his life on foot, his chariots destroyed, and his soldiers scattered across the battlefield. Exhausted and desperate, Sisera spotted the tent of Jael, wife of Heber the Kenite. Thinking he had found a safe haven, he called out for help. What happened next reveals something fascinating about ancient Middle Eastern hospitality customs. When someone sought refuge in your tent, you were bound by sacred laws of hospitality to protect them, even if they were your enemy. Jael knew this, and she welcomed Sisera into her dwelling with apparent kindness and care. She covered him with a blanket, gave him milk when he asked for water, and promised to guard the entrance of her tent while he rested. But Jael had made a decision that would change the course of history. While Sisera lay sleeping, trusting in her protection, she quietly picked up a tent stake and a hammer. These were common tools that every nomadic woman knew how to use expertly, as setting up and taking down tents was part of daily life. With precision born of years of experience, Jael positioned the sharp tent stake against Sisera's temple and drove it completely through his head with one powerful blow. The Bible describes how the stake went through his skull and into the ground beneath, killing him instantly. When Barak arrived pursuing Sisera, Jael calmly showed him the dead general pinned to the ground inside her tent. Can you imagine the thoughts running through people's minds when news of this spread? The mighty General Sisera, who had terrorized Israel for 2 decades with his iron chariots and massive army, had been killed by a woman using nothing more than tent stakes and a hammer. This was not just military victory. This was divine irony at its most profound level. Think about how God often uses the most unexpected people and methods to accomplish his purposes. A nomadic woman with basic household tools defeated what an entire army could not overcome through conventional warfare. Have you ever seen God work through someone or something that seemed completely unlikely? Share your story in the comments because these modern examples of divine intervention happen more often than we realize. The death of General Sisera at the hands of Jael became legendary throughout Israel and is commemorated in one of the most ancient songs recorded in the Bible. The Song of Deborah praises Jael as most blessed among women for her courage and decisive action that delivered Israel from oppression. But here is what makes this story even more remarkable. Jael was not even an Israelite by birth, yet she chose to side with God's people against their oppressor. Her actions demonstrate that sometimes deliverance comes from the most unexpected sources, and that God can use anyone who is willing to take a stand for justice. This incredible account reminds us that divine justice often operates in ways that confound human wisdom and expectations. The proud and mighty are brought low, while the humble and overlooked become instruments of deliverance. If this amazing biblical story inspired you to see how God can use ordinary people in extraordinary ways, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We share these incredible accounts of faith and courage that will strengthen your understanding of how God works throughout history. What other surprising biblical heroes would you like us to feature next?